RuneScape has consistently failed new players, and if you're an OSRS player who's clicked on this video, before you click off or leave a comment about how RS3 is dead, hear me out, because I think I'm about to agree with you, and I think I figured out why so many people hate RS3. RuneScape, a game with an incredibly complex combat system, does not have a combat tutorial. It was removed 5.5 years ago, and it was never replaced with anything. So now, when you're trying to learn combat, you just don't. But some other questions. Where do you learn about how the tick system works, or how combat numbers are calculated, or how to set up an interface, or what settings you need to play the game? On old school RuneScape, the answer is extremely simple. You learn about it from this dedicated new player's guide that is on the OSRS website that teaches you everything you need to know to become engrossed in the world. But what about an RS3? Where are you meant to go to learn these things? Are you meant to comb 20,000 distinct wiki pages that were probably written by someone that hasn't been a new player for 20 years? Are you supposed to comb through hundreds and hundreds of different YouTube guides only to find out that half of the ones you watched are outdated? This is one of the major ways that RuneScape 3 has completely failed new players, and it's been like this for years. But while you may think that the purpose of this video is to dunk on RuneScape 3 like so many others do for more or less abandoning new players many years ago, or complaining about things that old school has that RS3 doesn't, that's not what this video is. Because, quite frankly, I'm tired of complaining, and because complaining isn't gonna get us anywhere. We've got a brand new game mode with leagues coming out in 2 weeks, and I don't want this game mode or this launch to suck. So instead of complaining or dunking on a game that I have been playing for almost 20 years, I think I've got a better solution. Jagex is a billion-dollar company, with a B, and I'd like to think that this is something they should have done, or could have done, but when you're a billion-dollar company, you have a lot of checks and balances. You have to carefully advocate for resource allocation, and it's easy for things like new player resources to be deprioritized, especially when most of your active players are 5 and 10-year vets. But what if this lack of new player experience and lack of onboarding is part of the reason why this game has struggled so mightily to attract new players? But because I'm not a billion-dollar company, I can make poor financial decisions. I can dedicate as much of my time to whatever I want, and I don't need to rationalize it or justify it. I can just do stuff. And that is exactly what me and my friends have spent the better part of the last 2 weeks doing. So while you can rightly argue that Jagex should do this or should have done this, I think I've got something you're gonna like. New RuneScape players, this one's for you. Welcome to the rsguide.com, your one-stop shop for new player onboarding into RuneScape 3. Imagine you're a new player, looking for info on how to set up the Jagex launcher for the first time, or maybe you're a player coming over from old school. Perhaps you want some info on what your different game mode options are to play. Making an interface in RuneScape 3 is extremely annoying and frustrating, and a lot of players don't even know that there's interface sharing. So instead of spending 2 hours watching a YouTube video that you copy step by step, take 30 seconds, follow these steps, and just like that, you will have a functional, beautiful starter interface. Just like that for 2K or for 1080p, depending on your screen size. You want your game to look like Legacy? Do this. And once you're out of this step, we can head on over to a description on how to use the chat box and all of your chat shortcuts. But when you first log into RuneScape, you may not know what the minimap does or what any of these icons on your screen mean. And perhaps when you're looking at your minimap, you may not know what all of these random dots all over it are. But now you do, as you can actually tell hovering over what each of these distinct things mean. What about the world map? Or maybe you want to double click to place a marker, just like you can in-game. Well, now you can. But we've also got a lot of core accessibility features and visual clarity features that a lot of other games don't have. This includes things like skyboxes and filters, but also far more importantly, high contrast mode for those that may struggle with their vision. When you first log in, you're also given an action bar, but no explanation of what that action bar means or even what the icons on the action bar correspond to. So why not give you a rundown of exactly how all of that works? The same can be said about the buff bar and the debuff bar that kind of just show up on your screen, and at that point you're supposed to assume or expect to know exactly what they do or how they work. No wonder a lot of players die because a debuff kills them and they don't even realize that they're debuffed at all. But beyond that, what about the settings menu, where in this game we have literally over 1,000 distinct settings in the settings menu? It is completely unreasonable to expect a new player to comb through over 1,000 settings and fine-tune it and pick exactly what they want, especially considering a lot of these settings aren't intuitive at all. Some of them literally don't do what you would think they would do based on reading the description. So what about a little settings menu that gives you a recommended set of settings based on my own experience? As an example, I bet a lot of people who are watching this video, even if you're a veteran RuneScape player, didn't know that you can actually shift hold to drop items in this game. All of these options are just buried in the bottom of the settings to never be found by anybody. This is less of a first-time player resource, but what if all of the common RuneScape and MMO terms that you'll see on your adventures appeared in one spot, so that if you didn't know what something meant, you could very quickly look it up? But speaking of getting started, this is cool and all for first-time setup, but we're actually just getting started, because as promised, I think it would be extremely useful if you could actually explain the tick system, a thing that many RuneScape players even to this day do not understand. Why not get that done right now when you're first onboarding? Another thing a lot of RuneScape players struggle with is keybinds, because keybind theory is never explained at any point. When you click on a RuneScape stream, you're going to see someone with 5 action bars times 17 different inputs, and they're just kind of magically navigating all of them. But how do you go from a brand new player to that? Well, welcome to my introduction to keybind theory. This is a brief rundown of what keybinds do, what they're meant to do, how to use them, and my top tips and pieces of advice I would use to minimize hand movement and use keybinds to your advantage. You read this, you should be good to set your own set of keybinds that will work for the remainder of your RuneScape journey. We also cover things like MMO mouse binds, modifier keys, and of course, most importantly, my favorite mantra of all, practice makes perfect. But outside of learning the tick system and learning how to set keybinds, what about learning some basics of combat? For starters, how to read an ability tooltip. This is something that I know a lot of players, even veteran players, struggle with understanding. So let's take a look at a tooltip and break it down one piece at a time so that you can read any tooltip that you encounter along your journey. Let's also classify all of the different kinds of abilities and explain how they work. But beyond being able to read a tooltip, it might also be good to gain an understanding for how damage is dealt and calculated in RuneScape. This is something that was in the old school new player guide that I think is absolutely fantastic, so we've RS3ified it and got a perfect explanation of exactly how damage is dealt and the hit chance system works. Add in some style-specific breakdowns, and you're off to a really good start of understanding how RuneScape works. There's obviously a lot more that's being added to this website as we're not entirely feature complete yet, and I'm jumping the gun ever so slightly because I wanted to get this in front of you guys and let you all know what I've been working on. One of the things I'm extremely stoked about is a lot of players do not know what gear to get at specific levels, and it's going to take the same functionality of the wiki where you can type in a RuneScape name, it is going to automatically look up what your combat stats are, and it's going to make recommendations for what to use for each combat style, both for weapons and for armor. So instead of having to scroll through a wiki page with hundreds and hundreds of weapons and trying to figure out what's the best to get, what's the best bang for your buck, it's just going to give you a simple recommendation based on your stats, based on your budget, and based on your account type. And obviously, there's a whole lot more that we're going to have going on too for the more advanced guides. Things like a bossing progression guide, things like lots of different account goals that you may want to have. But instead of a lot of other guides that just tell you do this, and then do this, and then do this, I wanted to avoid that because I think it's better as a player if you make your own decision on what you want to unlock and why. So as an example, I'll list out an early game account goal of the Succession quest. But instead of just telling you to do this quest line, I'm going to tell you what you get for completing the quest line. It's all here. And then if you make the decision that you want to complete the Succession quest line, if you scroll down here, you're going to see all of the recursive requirements for the Succession quest line. And not only is it going to give you all of these skill recs and say, go get 60 smithing or go get 40 archaeology, it's actually going to make suggestions as to what the best or the most recommended way to train each of those skills is. This should make it a lot easier to forge your own path while making relatively good choices, but also give you the agency to make decisions. As an example, if you are not someone that needs the lunar spellbook based on the description, you can skip this line and keep moving on towards other goals that might be more beneficial for your account. So anyway, all that to say, that is what we've been working on for the last extremely long while, and I'm so excited to see how far this website has progressed. In general, we prioritized all of the basic first-time setup stuff as well, so if you're looking to give this to a new player who's trying out RuneScape for the first time, all of the info that they may be looking for should be here and should be ready to go. Of course, we are still doing some tinkering and making some little changes here and there, but more or less, what we've done is we've identified a huge problem and some way that RuneScape completely and utterly fails new players, and I have tried my very best to fix it. With that said though, what do you think? Do you think this is going to make a difference? To me, if I was a new player, this is exactly what I would want to familiarize myself with the world and hopefully give myself a better shot of enjoying the game. But with that said, thank you all so much for watching. I also wanted to say thank you for bearing with me on the worst upload schedule in human history. Now, hopefully it makes a little more sense why I've been a little bit less active here on YouTube as well as on Twitch. It turns out organizing and structuring and writing a guide of this size is an absolutely massive undertaking, especially when you're considering that we're trying to go parity plus with what Old School released. They had a dedicated budget and a ton of time allocated to making this, and us, we're just a group of friends that love the game and want to see it grow. So it's been an absolute ton of work, a lot of effort and a lot of energy has been put in both on the copy side and on the web dev side, but I'm really excited about where we're at with this guide. I think we're in a really good spot, and I'm super excited to see everyone getting their hands on this and hopefully learning a thing or two about RuneScape. With that said, thank you so much for watching, I appreciate the support as always, and I'll catch you in the next one.